Welcome everybody. I don't know what day you're listening to this, but where we are in this kind of like multiverse, in this dimension, it's Tuesday the 21st of March. I'm Jamie East.
And I am the otherworldly being formerly known as Chris Mandle.
See, we've had a very confusing start. We won't go into boring details, but
it's been awful.
We've now reverted to recording this on Zoom. It's just been chaos. We've had AirPods plugged in. We've had Lavelle mic. Oh, it's just been awful. But
I honestly thought I might do the movements, jump to a dimension in which my laptop fucking works, and see if we could just start again.
You are getting a new laptop soon, aren't you? That's gonna help.
Yeah,
things, I think.
This one is basically running on lots of wooden gears. You know, it's like a sort of. But yeah, I'm gonna getting a new one soon, and that should hopefully fix a few problems. Also, one of my AirPods did fall in a cup of tea last year, and that's the one with the microphone.
Oh, so did you use the rice trick? Was rice and Tupperware?
I did the rice trick, and I don't know to what extent it worked, but all I know is you can't get one new AirPod. Do you know what I mean? They make you buy two, so it's sort of like...
It's like shoes, isn't it? I don't know how many times I've lost one shoe. Can't just buy one shoe.
It is. But this is why I always thought if you've got one leg, you could steal so many shoes from the shoe shop, because you could just try one on and, well, not run off, but, certainly make a quick exit.
Exactly. You might just roll a boot on a broom handle for the other leg and just kind of zoom off, couldn't you?
I would.
Apologies to any. That's bad of me, actually. Anyway, if you think this podcast episode's got off to a confusing start, I hate to break this to you, but it ain't going to get any better, because we're here to discuss. This is our OA bonus episodes. We've had a brilliant run of OA episodes. We're now on part 2, episodes 5 and 6. This is our penultimate OA episode. We've only had one more to record, and safe to say from the start, it's been on a pretty good trajectory for you as a first time watcher. You've been involved, you've been excited, you've been intrigued, you've enjoyed it, and I have too with my rewatch, and really got into it and were able to kind of like really kind of nuzzle into it. These 2 episodes feel like they're from a completely different series, and I mentioned to you in the end of the Thrones episode, I think Netflix probably watched these and were just like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's the thought I had since watching it was, this is it's a really bonkers show.
Yeah,
no question. And I read a lot of reviews about season 2 without spoilers, just to sort of like see how it was received at the time. And a lot of reviews that were negative said, oh, this show is just too weird. And I just think, first of all, that is the worst criticism to level at the show, because up until this point, it's always done everything with a very, very heightened sense of conviction. Like, the show knows what it's doing. Yeah. And I think you can't go, oh, it's a bit weird, because it sort of is all working. It's always been a bit weird. Kind of sort of scheme or some kind of process. This is the first time I felt like the wheels were falling off, or it was driven off a cliff, or I think particularly because of Nina, or the OA storyline. That's normally where you get all these big revelations. And bear in mind, we've still come into terms with being in a whole new dimension, and I just felt like nothing happened.
Yeah,
at all.
I would, and it's different. I mean, you're right. Calling the OA weird, complaining about the OA being weird, is like complaining about Squid Game being in Korean. It's just it's pointless. That is just what it is. It's always been a strange show that has shown and not told. But the inherent problem, I think, and we've touched upon it in the past few episodes, is that whenever you're right, whenever it departs from Nina or Kareem and the mystery of the house and the fucking old knight and all of that stuff, when we go back to what BBA and Steve and all that gang are doing, it feels like an episode of the OC. It kind of feels like it's just like it feels just like a US teen drama full of angst. And in its defense, I still think, and bear in mind, I've not seen 7 and 8 for a long, long time. I think it is still on a path, and it does know what it's doing, because it has to get to a certain place, which you'll see in the last kind of like 10 minutes of episode 8. And it has to get there somehow, but it's very hard to defend Brit Marling and you know and the writers of the show, because I think it's just very badly written, you know, which is really strange, because it's been so beautifully crafted up until now. It just feels like it's just floundering, or maybe I don't know whether it's an arrangement. You know, sometimes you can have a great chorus in one song and a brilliant verse in the other, but they make like two really bad songs.
Like it's not got a good bridge.
Yeah, exactly. And
but it has a great chorus.
And I wonder whether it's an editing issue, whether they should have split a lot of the kind of the BBA plot line and interspersed it more with the Nina plot line, so that you were flitting back and forth a bit. I think maybe that could have had something to do with it, but to do like a whole...
I wondered if like they thought it was more episodes, or they thought it was less, and it's now and so they're having to be a little bit conservative with information. I mean, there are some things definitely to discuss, particularly in episode 5, but I thought episode 6, that was like the kids are still thumbing around and going to stay with BB-8's uncle. I just felt like, I just don't care at all. I'm really sorry.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of an episode of ER. Do you remember Mark, the doctor in ER?
Yeah.
You know when he died and went and lay in his bed in the fucking beach?
Yeah.
And that was what this episode reminded me of. But anyway,
let's
go to part 5 and just have a quick kind of recap of that. It starts off, Homer's like fucking selling wood in like some weird kind of house of black and white kind of thing. And then he sees a witch, and that has that amazing... It was like the House of Black and White, wasn't it? Just with people's like body parts kind of sticking out of... And he starts licking someone's back.
Which is what so I was sort of intrigued about this. This is in one of Nina's dreams. She talks about licking sweat off someone.
Same. That's like many of mine.
Most of mine, yeah. Also, you know who the woman is, don't you?
Was it the Harud? What was her? Was it the?
It's the sheriff's wife. The actor who plays the old lady.
Spotted. I did not spot that at all.
I got that on Reddit. Because I was sort of browsing around there this morning. So that, because you know, at first you're like, this is another dimension, and then it's sort of revealed to be a dream. Like he wakes up in the Dr. Homer wakes up in the hospital,
and he's starting to glitch, isn't he? He's starting to kind of glitch a little bit.
Yeah. But it's really, really interesting, right? Because it must prove it can't just be a dream if it's a woman that he has met in another dimension that he doesn't know in this one. So I thought that was really interesting. Also, these are like skins of... Can we just talk about what that woman's doing with all those skins? Are they...
I don't think it's ever really explained, unless they are... I mean, if you think about it, so the sheriff's wife knew about the movements, was part of like she had visited the kind of dimension, the kind of afterlife, and gone back. Maybe that's where, when they eventually do get killed, that's where they end up. I don't know. Maybe that's like purgatory style kind of thing. But it reminded me a little bit of Lost. You know, we talked about Lost before, the last episode of Lost, where they start touching things and remembering and getting flashbacks of previous lives and stuff like that. So it's very reverential to that.
Sort of had this idea that it could be a dimension that is like the connective tissue to the other dimensions, and the sort of bodies and the skins. It's an intermediary dimension, and they might not all be sort of random. There might be a sort of layer to them, and it might be between two dimensions, for example. I thought that was kind of an interesting idea, that this, I don't know, that maybe that thing when he licked what we presume was Prairie, she might feel that in a dream, or she might feel that in another dimension, and it's this way for them to sort of...
Okay, yeah.
If they're sort of on top, if these dimensions are sort of concurrent, happening on top of each other, they're a way for the people to kind of reach through. But it's sort of fascinating that they just don't feel the need to really explain.
Yeah, definitely. And
also, she was like, "Have you got any money?" And he was like, "No, I've got sticks." And she was like, "Great." Like, I'm sorry, this is skins of people's faces.
Yeah,
and she lives in the woods. Could she not get her own fucking sticks?
I know. Literally, just walk outside. There's loads of them there. Now, We then enter this kind of weird teen Hammer House, like horror house maze kind of sequence, which is good, feels good, but feels like a different style of show. It does feel like it feels like Stranger Things style, kind of like different rooms with different kind of like different genres of jeopardy in them, and getting lost and becoming a little bit Alice in Wonderland in places. But what I watched from that is like, okay, you have to, the way to get through the house is to use all of your senses, or all of your different senses, or something like that. That was quite cool, I thought.
I just thought I was like this. If you told me this was a crystal maze escape room, I'd believe you.
Exactly. Why? Yeah, exactly. If this had got to season 5,
because I
the
think
Trocadero
on
would have been the
level,
OA house. Yeah.
Yeah. On some level, you're like, there's not actually really a storyline. It's just, you're just throwing up roadblocks to stop your characters getting out.
Yeah.
Getting to the point that they get to.
Yeah.
And, that's just a classic stalling technique. Like Lost was sort of architected on this, like, keep the people at bay as long as possible. Yeah. But it's just sort of hard to watch when Prairie's like, oh, all the shapes on the tiles are different. We have to find them. I was like, I'm not watching someone else do a jigsaw puzzle. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's just not enough for me.
Yeah.
But what I did really like was the point where she sort of falls into all the tree roots and all of that. That was kind of exactly what I wanted. A bit more lore, a bit more kind of supernatural. And I thought all of those remarks, I didn't write them down, but, the tree's roots go way, way further underground. And if one tree falls, the canopy's broken. And there's a lot of really interesting
analogies going on there.
Yeah, with nature and the importance of nature.
Especially as we've just come off watching The Door, Game of Thrones, which was almost exactly the same with Bran, with the three-eyed raven. It's and The Last of Us, which is all about fungal neural networks. It's just
just about humans versus nature. I also it's eerily sort of relevant, but I just was listening to the New York Times podcast yesterday, and they did an audio version of a feature that ran in February in the magazine, where one of the writers goes to the Studio Ghibli amusement park in Japan.
Oh God, I bet that's amazing.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting because it's so subversive, because obviously Ghibli is like Japan's answer to Walt Disney, but the theme park was built in existing parts of nature. It's like $10 a ride, or like an attraction, but it's not like giant roller coasters. It's actually an immersive sort of sound bath in nature. What he sort of did that's really subversive is he kind of tricked consumerist audiences to come to this theme park, which is actually just forcing people to go back outside and enjoy nature. And they didn't take down a single tree when they built this amazing amusement center. They didn't damage any of the ecosystem. And when you compare that to like Walt Disney leveling out entire like hectares of land to the point where it's permanently ruined the ecosystem in Florida, I just thought that was really interesting, having watched that episode, because there's such a sense of like, we need nature. It does so much more than we realize, but also the connections in nature are sort of exactly the sort of connections that we should have in life. And I also think dimensionally, the roots and the ground and the branches, and it's all just very sort of interconnected, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah. Question for you, do those petrol soaked kind of torches actually work? Because I get a feeling that I would just blow myself up immediately if I tried
take your nose off or something.
I just see them all the time in films where people, look, I've got some rag. Hang on a second, there's some petrol in this can. So they do that and light it, and it kind of slowly comes. If I did that, it'd be like, woof, I've got no eyebrows.
Or you do it and it burns for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're like, great, I need more petrol.
Yeah, and you get Indiana Jones like fucking nipple high in some kind of like cesspit, like 3 hours later, and it's still like just dripping with fuel. Then we did get a little bit of lore with the engineer and the medium as well. Yeah. So we learned that they were husband and wife. The engineer built the house based around the medium's visions, and what we get here then is that and I don't know if it's the entire arc of what OA is all about, but the house seems to be the portal to to going somewhere, and you have to look through the glass in a certain way to be able to see where it is that you're going to go. We don't really know what that place is yet, do we?
No,
but is that is this what all of the things been leading up to, do you think? Is that window the answer to the whole riddle of all the parts?
I don't really understand, because I think, on some level, I think the house being the sort of focal point for all of this interdimensional travel would be too easy. Like, it's a house.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also, I think the sort of physical restrictions and like how to get through and use your senses, it's sort of confusing to me. The link I made though was that Elodie, the woman that Hap is sort of flirting with, she seems to have
flirting. He has his penis inside her. What do you consider flirting?
Well, you don't have. He's also been flirting with her. They're not. Mutually...
Oh, he's also been flirting. I would say that it's escalated maybe a tad.
Hey, I don't know.
They're interdimensional spooning.
I think with those two, I think is the best way to say it. I just thought they were good friends. No, but he is sort of really taken by her because she seems to know that he's jumped, right?
Yeah.
But she said in the last episode, the way that he'd been doing it with actions was quite primitive, and there was some kind of fuel.
Yes.
And what you mentioned about the senses in the house maybe is relative to that. Yeah. But I think also the thing I kept thinking of after watching both these episodes is you have to want to do it enough. And she was able to hop into another dimension very willingly because I think she sensed that she was in immediate danger.
Yeah.
But the kids didn't seem to jump because maybe they didn't actually want to, or maybe they weren't sure what they were doing. And I would just feel like the conviction to do it is what helps you do it, if that makes sense.
100%. There was a bit in that scene with Hap and her. Did you notice her break the fourth wall?
No. What was that? What was the context?
She just looked to the camera, just for a split second. She just, at the end of that sequence, she just went and just looked directly at the camera, just for a second, and looked away. It's really important.
Okay.
Just
interesting.
That's really important. Then also another little trope that's always dreadful in films is like, I don't know, have you ever held a lit Zippo before?
Yeah.
They get hot, like
really hot,
within like 20 seconds. And Kareem is just like trouncing around. No, one of them, or with a Zippo, like for 5 minutes. That would like
they really hurt your fingers.
It'd be like the fucking guy out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. What are we going to talk about?
Yeah, I hate that. I hate also those. They're just not as. Don't you find them a lot harder to use as well? Like I love the sound, but like. Just get a Bic lighter, mate. They're like 30p in
exactly.
any newsagents.
Okay.
So the house does seem to be the sort of focal point of it all. I can't quite understand why.
Yeah,
it can't be as easy as you can just jump through different dimensions with the house.
Yeah. So and the woman said that Hap is going to learn something.
Yes,
that was quite interesting. We don't know what that is yet, but that Hap is going to.
He's planning on making a powerful discovery.
Yeah,
and it could make OA Nina lose her faith. Yeah,
that's right. We saw Zendaya as an old woman.
Why? This is another thing, right? I fully don't expect them to answer this, but why is she old?
I think what I could guess, I mean, probably unnecessary subplot line that wasn't really written properly was that you can get lost in that house for eternity, and time moves differently. But the thing that confused, like, Kareem picked her up as if that was the girl he'd been looking for, didn't he? Like,
yeah,
remember right at the beginning,
for Michelle/Book, aren't they? But he found her and was like, "Well, I better get you out."
Yeah, you'll do. So yeah, very.
But also, do you know what? This is a trope that I hate. She's in the room. He picks her up, and the way to get out was to just like smash a plate against the wall, like smash the wall? Sorry, could she not have done that in the sort of 50 years that she was there? Did she just sat there going, well, there's no way I'll get out. I'll just have to stay here.
There's no way I'll get out of this paper thin wall.
And he literally
house.
just goes, it really annoys me because it's like, you didn't do anything. You got all the credit. So obviously time works in different ways, and maybe that's something that is being manipulated in that sort of house. But the thing that we also learn is that according to the trees, and this is something I've sort of definitely struggled with, is that like Prairie is the name of the person in part 1 because they were adopted and their parents gave her that name. Yeah. But in this timeline, that same person stays as Nina because they were raised Russian and they sort of grew up because the dad didn't have all that trouble. Is that right? So it is Nina in this life, and because their life is different, or maybe not because, but just as a sort of happenstance, Nina is a medium and can communicate with nature, which is why she's able to talk to the trees, and also
Old Night.
And Old Night. So that is something that, if you have the OA as the sort of like the kind of abstract version, when they're put in the body of Nina in this timeline, they're able to do different things. And the similar thing is with, like, in this other timeline, Homer didn't get the injury that stopped him being a quarterback, or he did. He ended up being a psychologist or whatever because of certain things that happened. So it's interesting because their lives can be very, very different. And so I suppose one of the questions I had watching this was, where are the kids?
Where are the other ones in this timeline?
But they will, Michelle is literally not trans. Who knows what could have happened to her? They maybe sort of spread to the wind, or Steve might have gone to military school and so doesn't come back. And there's all these kind of things. It's sort of, not everybody is in the same place geographically.
Correct. It is interesting. I enjoyed in an episode. I did enjoy the little mini robots.
Yes.
Doing the movements. So that was like Back to the Future Part 2, where it's just like, we don't need their plutonium because I've got these little magic cubes where cute little baby Yoda kind of robots come out and do all the movements. Hap going in for a second round as well. A few little blue pills in the drawer, maybe.
I know. Yeah.
It's like, goodness me, mate.
I know he's an absolute psycho. I find Jason Isaacs so compelling in this show, and I'm sort of like, even though he sort of abducts people, I'm a bit
very driven. Abduct me.
Yeah, I'm a bit like, I'll dunk my head in a basin of water for you.
And so she framed him, right? She knew what was going to happen. She called the police before she jumped, knowing that he was going to be left with these.
The thing I sort of only realized, because obviously we saw Prairie died after jumping.
Yeah.
And Eloise, or Elodie, or whatever she's called, she knew she was going to die, so she's called the police to kind of like frame Hap, I guess, or like,
I didn't really understand the motive of that.
Because she knew that when she jumps, she dies. The only thing I would say is, like, is that because the consciousness literally leaves the body?
I guess the soul. It's the soul that moves around, isn't it?
But then are these?
There are multiple.
And this is again something that I feel like the show will not answer. But your soul can only be in one of these realities. These aren't happening simultaneously. Then,
well, I think they are, but they're different. I think there's one, maybe the way I understand it is that, like, there's one true soul. So Nina, Prairie or the OA is the true soul of Prairie and Nina. That's and she was in Prairie at first and jumped into Nina because we saw Nina. We saw her jump into Nina. There was a scene in maybe the first episode of Part 2 where there was a kind of like moment where she arrived
where
in
she
the body.
Thought she was having like a heart attack or something.
Exactly, but she wasn't. She was just she was just being
and maybe also
possessed.
Just the sheer like cosmic force of jumping.
Yeah.
You have to sort of it does kind of just split you in some way, but also if you move into another dimension, that soul, because it's been across 2 dimensions, maybe is more concentrated, is more powerful. That's why Nina is that's why Elodie is able to have this awareness, because if maybe she's done this 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, possibly.
You know, the other thing I think is very clever is just that something that we thought of as a very pure spiritual thing, the movements in one timeline, has been automated by robots. I think that is really like quite clever. A callous kind of like statement about like tech in our lives, but she can't take those with her, right? So
exactly, that's the thing. Maybe she just knows how to make them quickly, or it's very weird. And quickly, I mean, we'll go into episode 6, but there's not a great deal to talk about apart from that it was just monumentally dull, and pointless. The only thing that I thought was interesting was Riz Ahmed, appearing and suggesting that he doesn't work for the FBI really, but he's also a multidimensional kind of jumper, and is like a custodian / helper / what did you assume
kind of spiritual kind of counterweight almost? He seems like somebody I saw online. He was described as her psychotherapist or something.
Yeah, I guess
as OAs, and I thought you were with the FBI. I thought you were like a sort of
no. I thought he was like a freelance. I thought he was like kind of like where you get sent to go and visit a shrine by the FBI.
I love just walking around with an FBI jacket on. Yeah, I bet they all do that. Like, he's getting his 10% discount at McDonald's with that. Do you think
you can buy them at Camden Market? Yeah, exactly.
But no, I think he'll obviously because Steve has left, Jesse's dead.
Yeah.
So presumably Steve's girlfriend and Riz Ahmed will do the movements. They'll fill those spaces. There has to be 5 of them, right?
Yeah, it has to be 5. The intriguing bits were, I guess annoyingly intriguing was, what is a house? Yeah, but what is a house? And then also part of you, where he said part of you is always known. It's like, what the fuck? I didn't like that. It's kind of like, that can mean anything. There's no way of guessing. There's no way of going, oh, hang on a second, I know what you mean by that. It's just like, that's just like a proper find out in next week's episode kind of thing.
Yeah, but also it's one of those things on TV where like any normal person would say, what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Don't say things like that. So you just go, and I watch it and think, what did you not just say to him? What are you on about?
Yeah, I don't get it. What do you mean? Sorry, I'm being stupid. Yeah. Oh.
So that was interesting. I thought also just the fact that the movements didn't work to bring back Jesse. I think there's something.
Well, it was only him. There's only Steve that did the movement overnight.
Was Buck not doing it as well?
I don't think they both did it overnight, did they? I thought, wasn't he just there all on his own overnight? Or maybe I
thought they were both doing it until the sun came up.
Maybe they need all of them to. Maybe they need the 5 people.
I think you need 2 to do the resurrection thing.
Oh, of course, yeah, because that was what was Steve. Sorry, not Steve.
I kept thinking like part of the problem with the kids is that they don't know why they're doing it, so they're sort of blind acolytes to the cause, and I think they don't know. I don't really know what to make of Jesse dying, because I honestly forgot who he was even when he was like in the episode.
Yeah, apart from don't take fentanyl patches.
Was he just suicidal? Is that why he did it?
I think he just had enough. Yeah, he kind of. I think that was it. Yeah,
which is kind of didn't know what to make of that.
It was all. It's a bit of a hot mess, really. The whole episode was.
Yeah. They're not good when they focus on the kids. It's just not good, because every time Nina is not on screen, I'm like, what's Nina up to? The character that successfully crossed into another dimension. I'd love to know more about that, rather than like.
I think it's a bit of a longer story arc. I think it does resolve in an interesting way.
I'm sure it's going somewhere, and they're getting to Treasure Island.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind them doing a Game of Thrones and just getting there quicker.
Exactly.
Rather than like
Stannis has just arrived. Okay, listen, strap yourself in, because despite everything, nothing will have prepared you for what you're about to watch. I want you to text me immediately after watching the final episode.
Okay, I'm going to watch 7 this afternoon, I think.
Okay, yeah, I might do that. But save 8, because I want you to be quite fresh with 8. Because
I will, yeah. I'll watch it on Monday morning.
For those listening that have watched it, you'll know exactly what I mean, where it's just one of the most like, what the fuck is going on? It's like, what is going on?
Is it like the octopus? Is it like that? Because that blew my mind. That whole thing is like...
I mean, the octopus is like fucking child's play compared to the last 10 minutes of part 2.
Does it all make sense in the end or not?
You know, I'm not telling you.
Okay.
It will either satisfy you, or make you angry that, or make you angry that it got cancelled, because you just kind of like, how can you leave it there? You'll either think it's genius or utter lunacy.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's a good tease. Tease. So we'll do the next one. We'll do 7 and 8.
Yeah, and then that's it for the OA, and we'll discuss what we'll take over from there. As we've got a lot of plates in the air at the moment. We've got a few weeks left on Thrones. Succession starts next week. Blah 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 blah. So it's exciting times to be part of the Dragoncast family. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I completely agree. Well, thank you very much. It's been good as ever. Enjoyed this dimension.
Absolutely. I'm just about to set light to. I've just soaked my knickers in some ethanol, and I'm just going to go wandering around the house for a few days.
Yeah, I'm going to go and camp on the beach.
With any luck, might find Zendaya in the closets.
In the closet. All right. Have a good one.
See you later, buddy. Bye.
Bye.